The Young and the Restless spoilers shock Tuesday full episodes June 10, 2025 In the pale quiet of a late afternoon, Mariah sat across from Tessa at the small oak table in their favorite cafe, its varnished surface catching the low light and lending their faces an almost cinematic glow. She clasped the foam of her cappuccino as though it were a lifeline, knuckles whitening with the tremor of truths she had carried alone for too long. When Tessa arrived, her gaze soft with concern and the unspoken promise of solidarity, Mariah felt a collision of relief and dread. She had asked Tessa to listen, to bear witness to decades of whispered shame and fear that now threatened to crush her entirely. The weight of her hesitation spoke volumes. Mariah had been away on assignment for Cassidy First, a corporate retreat that demanded her attention and left her adrift in a haze of celebration and excess. She had been drunk, she admitted, though the words seemed inadequate to describe the disorientation that followed. Dragged beyond the boundaries of intention, she had made choices that shattered the fragile scaffolding of trust she had so carefully erected. In halting tones, Mariah described how she found herself at the bar long after the colleagues had dispersed, a solitary figure beckoning to a phantom of the past. Into the dim pool of neon light stepped a man whose features, salt and pepper hair, a measured smile, echoed the nightmares she had tried to outrun. He introduced himself softly as a friend, his manner both solicitous and unsettling, as though he observed her with an intimate knowledge she could neither confirm nor deny. She had laughed nervously at first, brushing aside the coincidence of his resemblance to the one man whose control over her soul had been absolute, Ian. Yet as the conversation deepened, his voice a low velvet whisper gliding around her defenses, Mariah felt the past coil itself around her heart. The world tilted, and in the distorted mirror of that encounter she glimpsed her own fracture, the fissure stretching from the moment she sipped the wrong cocktail to the second when she consented to a bond more insidious than infidelity. When morning came, its light too harsh to bear, she realized that the damage surpassed any simple betrayal. She could not name it without shuddering, and each word she had tried to frame dissolved into tears. She told Tessa that what she had done was worse than cheating, a confession so raw and incomplete that it felt as if she had torn her own soul open and left it bleeding on the tabletop. Tessa listened without interrupting, her heart pounding beneath the crisp collar of her blouse. She remembered the advice Daniel had once given her. Move slowly, build trust through gentle persistence, and let Mariah set the pace. She recalled how he spoke of love as patient and kind, but never as a force that rushed to claim victory. Now, as Mariah's confession unfolded, Tessa reached across the table, her fingers hovering just above Mariah's trembling hand before resting there in a quiet promise. She told Mariah that admitting fears and regrets was normal, a bridge between two hearts in crisis. Yet the moment Mariah heard those words she recoiled, her eyes widening with panic as though Tessa's well-meaning reassurance might consume her entirely. She drew back, erasing the warmth that had flickered between them, and muttered a plea for privacy before standing up and slipping away into the late-day shadows. Left alone, Tessa folded her hands against her chest, the cafe's ambient chatter swirling around her like rain on a windowpane. Doubt gnawed at her. Had she moved too quickly, relied too heavily on platitudes when Mariah needed something more concrete? Yet even as she chastised herself, she felt the unassailable truth of her own devotion. Love did not guarantee clarity or confession, it offered sanctuary when the world outside felt treacherous. She resolved to follow Mariah's lead, to let the silence speak when words failed and to remain steadfast in the emptiness too. That evening, Mariah wandered through her dimly lit apartment, its walls adorned with photographs of happier times, smiles shared under summer skies, arms entwined on city streets at night, the two of them bathed in the glow of mutual understanding. Now those images felt like relics from a life that had become a puzzle missing its most vital piece. The knowledge of what she had done, and who she had allowed herself to become in that moment of vulnerability, weighed on her like a curse. She sank onto the edge of the sofa, head in her hands, recalling the man's voice and the foolish comfort she had found in his imitation of Ian's cadence. She could taste the regret still on her tongue, bitter as the cheap wine that had veiled her judgment. It struck her that confessing, even to Tessa, had not lightened her burden. It had merely revealed the depth of the abyss she now faced. Across town, Tessa sat on the fire escape outside her apartment, its metal rails cold beneath her palms. She stared up at the night sky, searching for constellations she had once loved, but finding only darkness peppered with faint, distant lights. She wondered if Mariah's silence was an act of self-preservation or an unspoken plea for time. Perhaps the truth would emerge in its own season, like spring after a long winter. She thought of Daniel's counsel again and found comfort there: trust the process, honor the pace, and never waver in one's own heart. She resolved to leave a note for Mariah by morning, not an ultimatum or a demand for answers, but an affirmation that she would wait, that the door would always remain open. With that decision, a measure of peace settled over her. Days passed without communication. Emails went unanswered, calls were routed to voicemail, and the space between them stretched taut like a tightrope over an unseen chasm. Friends noticed Mariah's absence from their group chat and speculated behind muted screens. Tessa resisted the impulse to flood her inbox until she felt the pull of anxiety subsiding into patient hope. Finally, late one evening, Mariah arrived at Tessa's door, eyes rimmed red and voice barely above a whisper. She held out a single photograph, a snapshot of Ian's face, one of 1,000 pictures she had flicked from her mind before she had realized the depth of his imprint on her psyche. In that moment, the unspoken barrier between them cracked. Mariah's hands trembled as she handed over the photo, offering the evidence of her fear and self-reproach. Tessa took it gently, understanding at last that this was the beginning of a confession deeper than any she had dared to ask for. And as Mariah's tears fell, Tessa reached for her once more, ready to meet her there in the darkness, to walk with her through the terrible truths she had unveiled, and to show her that even the deepest wounds could heal in time when met with unwavering love. Beneath the surface of every confession lies a deeper current of silence, and in Mariah's case, that current threatens to pull her under. She insists to Tessa that the truth of what happened beyond Genoa City cannot be spoken aloud, not for reasons of mere shame or embarrassment, but because it may carry legal consequences severe enough to upend not only her career but her very freedom. Mariah's trembling voice hints that the events of that night were more than a lapse in judgment. They may have crossed a line that separates a single mistake from a criminal act. Every time Tessa presses for details, Mariah deflects, claiming that to reveal too much would place not only her but also Aria Porter Copeland, her beloved goddaughter, in danger. The name Porter Copeland slips from her lips as though it were a talisman, an evocation of innocence that must be shielded at all costs. In the hush that follows, one wonders whether Mariah's sin is something akin to fraud. Perhaps she misrepresented herself to that mysterious man and absconded with money or secrets, or whether the stakes are darker still, did she harm him, physically or psychologically, and flee before the consequences could catch up? Hints of blackmail emerge in the tremor of Mariah's voice when she mentions threats that followed her return. The mysterious stranger, whose features were only ever glimpsed in the flicker of neon light and whose resemblance to Ian Ward was too uncanny to ignore, now appears to wield leverage over Mariah's fate. His whispered demands, money, silence, complicity, have come at intervals, demanding payments wired to offshore accounts or the suppression of incriminating evidence. Each refusal has been met with an unspoken threat: reveal the truth, and Aria's safety will be compromised. Mariah's panic becomes palpable when she whispers of unexpected visitors lurking near Tessa's old apartment, of unmarked envelopes slipped beneath her door containing photographs from that night. Finally, her shoulders shake with the knowledge that no matter how fiercely she denies it, she is being hunted, and the predator is someone she once believed she could trust. As Mariah's web of secrets tightens, so too does the precarious balance of her relationship with Tessa. Tessa oscillates between fierce protectiveness and growing fear that what Mariah is hiding may be irredeemable. Every unanswered question becomes a chasm between them, and Tessa begins to suspect that love may not be enough to bridge the gulf of uncertainty. In private moments, she scours news reports for missing persons notices, checks discreet online forums for whispers of scandal, and consults a lawyer friend under the guise of general curiosity. But each scrap of information only deepens her dread: a body found in a lakeside clearing, an unidentified driver arrested for hit and run. None can be tied concretely to Mariah, yet each resonates with the fear that the truth will emerge violently. Meanwhile, across town in the ostentatious offices of Newman Enterprises, Audra Charles leans forward across the mahogany desk of Victor Newman himself. The invitation to Aristotle Dumas's Paris Gala? An opportunity for any rising socialite to claim international exposure has been quietly handed to her by Victor, who expects Audra to leverage the gathering to secure a lucrative deal for Newman Enterprises with Dumas Industries. But Audra harbors a more personal agenda. She intends to lure Kyle Abbott into the glittering trap of Parisian excess so that she may humiliate him, expose his fatal weaknesses, and shatter his reputation in the cruelest way possible. Victor, ever the strategist, sees in her ambition a chance to test Audra's loyalty, and perhaps to undermine both Kyle's and Abbott's influence back home. He watches her with a calculating gaze, offering veiled encouragement. "Make sure you give them something to talk about," he murmurs, "but don't let your own secrets slip." Audra's mind spins with possibilities. If she can engineer Kyle's downfall, public indiscretions caught on camera, whispered rumors of impropriety or worse, she will both repay the slight Kyle once dealt her and prove herself indispensable to Victor's machinations. She imagines planting a proverbial banana peel beneath his polished shoes, perhaps a compromising photo at the gala's afterparty, or a staged confrontation that paints Kyle as unstable and untrustworthy. Every detail is meticulous. The guest list, the timing of her text messages to lure him away from the main event, even the choice of perfume that, she knows, will trigger lingering memories in Kyle's mind. Audra's ambition is a blade held at Kyle's throat, and she wields it with the precision of a master. Yet even as Audra prepares her trap, another player moves in the shadows. Holden Novak, ever the quiet observer, has begun to pick up fragments of intelligence through chance encounters at Crimson Lights and offhand remarks in corporate corridors. A comment from a Dumas aide hints at Victor's secret involvement, a text from a mutual acquaintance references Audra's whispered intention to teach Kyle a lesson. Holden files these details away in his private ledger of grudges. After all, Kyle's past actions toward Holden and his allies have not been forgotten. Now, equipped with the knowledge that a clandestine plot is unfolding, Holden must decide his next move. Will he intervene on Kyle's behalf, confronting Audra directly or warning Kyle of the trap? Or will he use the situation to his own advantage, perhaps by leaking the story first to the tabloids, ensuring that Kyle is ruined regardless of Audra's careful planning? As dusk settles on Genoa City, each of these storylines trembles on a knife's edge. Mariah's secret yearns to be spoken aloud, yet the shadows that guard it grow more formidable by the hour. Audra's scheme simmers beneath the surface of polite society, waiting for the moment she will strike. And Holden Novak, armed with half-truths and suspicions, stands at a crossroads: loyalty, revenge, or opportunism. In a city built on ambition and betrayal, the smallest misstep can trigger an avalanche, and each character, Mariah, Tessa, Audra, Kyle, Victor, Holden, must navigate a labyrinth where every choice carries a price. The stakes have never been higher, and soon, the delicate balance of secrets and alliances will shatter, unleashing consequences none of them could foresee. Under the soft glow of the Newman living room's antique lamps, Victoria stood beside her mother as Nikki patted her hand with gentle concern. "Mom," Victoria began, her voice wavering like a fragile reed in the wind, "I'm worried about Cole. He's been battling pneumonia for weeks, but I can't help wondering if it's something more serious." Nikki's brow furrowed at the thought of her former son-in-law, the man who once held Victoria's heart and now stood at the center of an uncertain prognosis. "He was so vibrant at my birthday party," Nikki recalled, her voice catching with memory. "But halfway through the evening, he turned pale and couldn't stand. I rushed him home, and the doctors confirmed pneumonia. Yet every day since, he's grown weaker." The room felt suddenly colder as they contemplated the possibility that Cole Howard's life might be slipping through their fingers, and Victoria fought back tears for the child she would never bear with him, her own unborn daughter waiting for a father whose health now hung in the balance. Meanwhile, across town in her sleek apartment overlooking crimson lights, Mariah Copeland paced the polished floors like a caged bird. Guilt weighed heavy on her shoulders as she replayed that fateful night away on business for Cassidy First. She had made a choice she couldn't unmake, a choice she dared not confess in full to her wife, Tessa. Though she had admitted to a single indiscretion, every partial revelation only widened the chasm of mistrust between them. Mariah's heart pounded whenever she heard Tessa's gentle reassurance, "You can tell me anything, love." For what she truly feared was not Tessa's disappointment but her own shame. What if the truth was darker than mere infidelity? What if she had crossed a line so devastating that Tessa's love could not withstand it? The mysterious man who resembled her ex-cult leader, Ian, lingered in her dreams and her waking nightmares, whispering threats like wind through a cracked window. Had she only flirted with danger, or had she imperiled him somehow? And now paid the price in blackmail and looming retribution? Mariah pressed her hands to her temples, willing herself to steel against the tremors of fear that besieged her every hour. The time has come, WNR fans. What do you think really happened to Mariah that night? Did she betray Tessa in the simplest sense of cheating, or is there a darker secret beneath her hushed confessions? Could a crime, perhaps even violence, have occurred that she's too afraid to admit? And as she prepares to confront these demons, what will it take for Mariah to summon the courage to tell Tessa everything? We've watched her struggle, but will love and persistence be enough to break through her silence? Sound off below and let us know your theories. Is Mariah simply guilty of infidelity, or is the truth far more sinister? Stay tuned, because this explosive revelation promises to reshape lives on and off the screen.